Thank you for chatting with me today, Kristie. And I really I wanted you were just we were just talking before I hit recording about that podcast. So tell me about it, and then we'll talk poetry.
Okay, cool. So what Assembly of Excellent podcast hosted by Mel, what he's done is that went ahead and gave me the platform to talk about autism awareness right at the end of the Autism Awareness Month, which was like April 29th or
Yeah.
yeah, something of that nature. So and it was great because a lot of us are out here, and for me as a writer, I knew how much it took away from me to be an autism mom. I knew what it took, and got so bad because I talk about domestic abuse, and
Mm,
my daughter doesn't know it, but it's still I got beat up pretty bad,
mm,
throughout the years, which caused me to be disabled.
mm,
So a lot of the things that, has happened, I found to be so dark. So I was always in a suicidal state. And I had told my son one time, I said, you know what, when one of the doctors had proclaimed that my life was going to be over,
mm,
and because they overdosed me on medications.
mm,
And so it was like I told my son, I don't have my writing anymore. I don't have it. You know what it takes to be, the poet, the author, and he's like, "Mom, you don't have it anymore." Yeah, you got it. He said, "You just lost it. Go find it." It could be like on the shelf. And it reminded me of he's like, it's just got to be dusted off. You know
mm,
what I mean? And you can do that. And so once I beat it by going all holistic at that time, then, I started to be able to write more and everything else. And then, at this point in time, I didn't want to scare anybody. So I've written a lot about autism, but I'm going to because it's well needed and understanding, what we go through and what happens to us. So
yeah.
my God, writing back, you know what I mean? And it was nice to meet you on his show. Because listening to you and everything else, I think that this is what certain people had in mind when they talk about technology.
Mm-hmm,
So that way we can get together, we can share our stories,
mm-hmm.
and we can heal together, we can write together, we can laugh together, we can cry. It's just a beautiful thing to be a writer and, a poet. It's just words are beautiful, like they do matter.
Yeah. When was the first time that you remember writing something?
6 years old.
Mm,
Our teacher gave us something to do with fantasy, and it had to be something with a dragon incorporated into it.
okay.
So I just remember just going in, what I mean, and I don't know nothing at 6. I'm just going for it. And so I handed it to my teacher. At the end of the day, it had a lot of red markings on it.
Mm.
And back in the day, red markings mean bad, 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 and bad. So that thing was lit red. So I went and I gave it to my mother, and I hurried up and ran in the room, and I was embracing for a beating because I was like, oh shoot, I know she's just gonna tear me up about it.
Mm.
And she called me back, and I was scared, and she's like, oh my gosh, look at what your teacher wrote. She said that, you are gifted, and you're a gifted writer already, and so that's gonna be your future. And I was
Mm.
just so shocked because it was like, okay, not only the get out of a beating pass, but it was also of the more fact that, I did what I was supposed to do and I felt good. And so in my journey, I wasn't talking about things a lot because, in the family dynamics back then, you didn't talk about things.
Right.
So I wrote, I was just always writing and getting into contests and everything else. And going into regionals and all that stuff. So, alongside with my music, my writing was the beginning at 6 years old, and I just knew that I had it.
Mm. Mm.
And it wasn't the ego either. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was so cool because I had a voice.
Yeah. 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 I have my I was a little bit it took me a little bit longer. I was 8 years old when I had that feeling. And I
Oh, okay.
wonder,
See you there. That was that. That was awesome. That's
I,
awesome.
I, I wonder if, I wonder if when you find the thing that you're supposed to do, right? Whether it's writing or cooking or dancing or singing or like there that moment, the moment that the light bulb goes off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I heard Misty Copeland talk about this, the ballet dancer who hadn't danced for until she was in her early teenage years. That as
Uh-huh.
soon as she was in a dance studio, she was like, "Oh my god, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to
Right.
do." Um, and I think for me the that was, even though I'm very certain that that was that moment, when I was 8, sitting in my bathtub, in the middle of the night. I know that that's what I was supposed to do, but it's still, but I see how the life took me in different turns,
Mm-hmm.
um, because even though I've always come back to writing, I spent a lot of time. I've spent more time running away from writing than I have embracing writing. Um,
That makes sense.
until now, and I had to, and that was almost all due to my mental health struggle. So it hasn't, you know, it's only in these last 5 years since I was hospitalized that I'm like, I'm going to really put myself, or commit to writing, even though I wasn't putting myself out there, right? I wasn't being
Right.
public about what I wrote. Um, I was just writing in silence the way I always had, at least about my real feelings. Like I've done a lot
Right.
of writing that's been public, but the deep stuff where the healing work is, I've always been afraid to share that work publicly.
I definitely get you all the way because I have so much work that I have done, and I put it in terms to not be so plain about this is what's happening in life, and this is what's going on. But however, I really would like to get into it because the more that I'm delving into my second spoken word album, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going open more, but I really just need to go ahead and push and do a third one. I think I'm just going to do it all the way around mental health
Mm,
in general because it's everybody wants you to be so embarrassed, but yet they want you to seek help here and there. And I find it very therapeutic that the way that I got through like my parents' deaths was to because I was 15 by the time my mom died and my dad died at 13.
mm,
So I had found that within the writing community, I didn't need to go see somebody, and I didn't believe in going to see anybody only because of the fact that we had more community, and so things like depression and those types of things didn't stay long lasting or really interfere full fledged with me.
mm.
Um, and so that's what kind of therapy I get out of it is talking to people that are real, able to share their stories. I've been into, unfortunately, a hospital. I got hospitalized, and it was so embarrassing, but I knew that the medication that they had me on was driving me crazy.
Mm,
And the not being able to protect my daughter after turning 21 and being a property of the state because my doctors wouldn't allow me to go ahead and have custody of her alone.
mm,
And I was disconnected from my family. So it was one of those things that I really know what people, and I understand because it was humiliating. It was like 2 nights down in the emergency room and a 1 night and a half, on the floor. And I
mhm,
realized then it sobered me up to say, Kristie, look, get your stuff together. There are other people that really, really, I mean, and I met people that were really just at different levels. And but before then, because of my daughter, I realized that mental health was something that people put into their work. And so I really feel you on the fact that we can sit up there and build on our poetry and everything else, but we have to really go deep. And people might not like it because I know I was told at one point I was dark. And so
Mm,
I stopped writing dark and I said, Dear God, show me the light.
mm,
And I just started writing light for 20 years.
mm.
And so I don't know how to go back into that darkness of it without being scared that, wait a minute, somebody felt that way. But we got to not worry about that. This is
Yeah,
our calling. This is what we are meant to do. And it's meant to be for somebody versus looking at who's not going to like it. And that's where my brain is now like, oh, just take a chill.
yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Can you would you mind reading the piece we swapped?
Oh, I absolutely don't mind at all because I was looking forward to it. I've read it like multiple times since I got it. So, Desert Thirst by Ralph Bryant.
No, no, read your piece. I'll read my piece.
Oh, I thought we were reading each other's pieces and then seeing
Oh,
what
we
it
could do
was.
that.
Okay, because I mean, I that's what I was practicing for, and I like it.
Okay, we could do that. Okay.
Okay,
So I'll read yours first.
okay, cool, cool, cool.
Okay. Mama came home in the wee hours of the night, stumbling and swearing after knocking over her fake porcelain cat that sat on her fake porcelain ledge. She tried to hold on tightly from falling over. Mama, is that you? Go back to bed, she slurred. A few minutes had passed, and then there was a loud thump. I leapt out of bed and ran from my room where her body lay, slumped on the floor. Her clothes were mangled. Her wig was slouched across her forehead. Her makeup worn and stained down her cheeks, saliva drooled down her lip, and a rubber band tied securely around her arm as a needle held steadfast in her vein. Mama, I screamed, cradling her limp body as life began to surrender and death approaches. The police soon arrived, followed by the ambulance, and while they made preparations to take Mama away, I had to get away. From the mass of people hoarding in on our tiny apartment, I ran to the fire escape, my safe haven, when things got hectic. I blankly stared ahead at the obscure night as tears bathed my flesh, searching for a sign from my God who sits on high. Then appeared a single star who twinkled as if winking at me, a symbol that one representing me still has hope in a world representing the sky filled with darkness. Then a firm hand was placed on my shoulder. It was my aunt. She said, "Oh, it's time to go, baby." She held out her hand and I reached, allowing her to lead the way, representing God who will lead me out of every terrible situation. And I allowed relief and hope to calm my soul. Poem.
I loved it. I love that as if it was your own. You made it your own. I like that tone. I like the way you did that. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, Desert Thirst. I reached out to you at a truck stop in the desert on a forgotten strip on Route 66. Your white dress swirling in a breeze as you sauntered closer and closer, bringing life to the old ghost town. Rusted streetlights flinching as you pass. I call out to you. You were a mirage or an oasis. I was dying of thirst, traveled long on highways and dirt roads, searching for the signs of the giants trapped in limestone trying to find a home. I cut myself open to bleed for you, needed you to see me inside. Dusty like this old town, instead you treated you treated my wounds with spit and dirt, ripping a part of your dress to wrap the cuts. You kissed me on the forehead, inhaling the whiskey and sass on your breath, a piece of you floating inside me as I drove away, as you turned to the wild, humming Patsy Cline. Oh,
Thank you. Um, there's a lot of your piece feels very familiar to me, and I mean, it's interesting that I think uh, that uh, you know, I was always the thing that struck most for me is this needing to kind of get away from the chaos of the thing.
hmm.
There's so many great lines in your piece that I like a lot. I could visualize that cat. Like I sat with that cat. That porcelain cat on that porcelain ledge seemed uh such like a delicate note, right, in
Hmm.
this piece that you could see where I could when I first read it, I was like, God, I know where this piece is going. And I loved the descriptions of Mama as as we find her,
Uh-huh.
um and this, I resonate with it because I've spent a lot of time escaping chaos and looking for peace. And maybe that's what life is all about, right?
Yeah,
And so I really appreciate, and I think, the thing is, that's kind of like the only thing that life is about, is remembering that even when it's at life is lifing the most, that there is an opportunity and a space to find God, and whatever God means to you, right? Like,
right,
it doesn't, I think for a lot of people, God means peace. Whether that peace is temporary, permanent, or temporary. And in I spent a lot of time on my rooftop, like looking for peace and escaping
mhm,
peace as a kid. And um even now, though I don't run away the way I used to, um I stay awake super late, and because I like the peace, that I like knowing that everybody's asleep and I can just kind of be by myself in my own shit.
right.
Uh, yeah, which totally comes from me running away when I was a kid,
Mm.
or seeking peace in the bathtub when I was a kid. Um, how share Tell me about, like, I don't know, I know it's intense, this piece, but I'd love to just hear some thoughts about how does it feel having someone else read your words?
Wow. It's totally different. First of all, it's empowering because you have to step back and allow that person in their interpretation. So it's good to be vulnerable and just listen without any expectation when somebody reads your work, because that was truly tremendous. And I felt like it was your piece. you
Mm,
know I'm like, oh snap. Yes, so I think that what you got going on right now is something brilliant,
Mm,
because that right there was just like it made my whole day,
that's
and
dope. That's dope.
and I felt it from your point of view.
Right. Right. How do you how do you tap uh into that intensity in meaning like one of the things I know as a writer, I'm not great. I that I want to tighten. Right. It's not that I'm not great at it. It's just I want to tighten it. Um, is to put people in rooms with more description. Right now, that requires something of me to be able to look uh look at the subject of the thing I'm writing with a little bit more scrutiny, a little bit closer lens, and I'm not
Mhm.
certain that I want to do that. So
Right.
because that's where those little nuggets, those little nuggets, those little descriptors, in your piece, her clothes are mangled, her wig slouched. All of those are ingrained in our brains, right?
Yes.
Um, but most of us close ourselves off to that level, to remembering that level of detail. How do you tap back in to that energy?
Well, first of all, this never happened to me. It never happened to anybody in my family. What I was
Okay.
doing was that when I saw um, something that was kind of similar that has happened to somebody, that was just on the outskirts, but I said, let me go grander with it. Let me take this real small, like you said, nugget, and let me build it, into a boulder, and that where it's heavyweight. And so what I just did was that I would allow things to come to me, and I would just go there.
Mm,
And I was able, that's why I was telling you that people were telling me while I was writing those types of things beforehand that I was dark. And it was like, okay, I'm just expressing what's going on with me, and people are loving it, but I really don't care. I just want to get it to the point where I could go ahead and start publishing and letting the world to see, because that's what my parents instilled in me, that I could do anything, and they
mm,
had my back. So when they
mm,
died, family had stepped up, but then it was like my older sister took me away from the family.
mm,
And so my career was in writing. They were getting me into writing, into modeling, and into dance. Okay, because that's what the three categories that I really just and music. But I didn't know if I was going to play my clarinet up there, or my sax. But those three things, that once my dad was sick, my family promised on his side. So it was one of those things that writing kept with me. And I know, today I can't do the modeling, and I can't do the dance up to the way I want to. I still see the choreography, that I want to do, but now I just put it into the words. And I
mm.
don't care about going deep, because I can pull myself out.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the
yeah,
important thing, is knowing how to pull yourself out.
yeah. I don't know that um, I don't. That's really interesting. I'm not as good at pulling myself out as I used to be. Oh, I don't know that I was ever good at it, to be honest with you. But I recognize that, and most of my writing, um, most of my writing has come from a place from a place of either longing or trauma, more trauma than longing.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some demons that I needed to exercise to be able to get uh, to the other side of healing for me.
Yeah.
And so writing, which had always been my therapy since I was a little kid, and first started writing, continued to be my therapy. The but as I have gone along this healing journey, I don't want to hold on to that anymore. Right. I don't want I want to use my writing um moving forward to express joy, to explore some different energy with words than I have been able to that I've been able to. This
Mm-hmm.
piece, Desert Thirst, is kind of an example of me wanting to write differently,
Mm.
um, or to express emotion differently that wasn't solely tied to pain. um
Right.
and so there is a line, and I remember when that line happened a year, coming 2 years ago, when I was like, I want to express emotion and energy and vibration. I want to express it differently, because not because you know those partially because I had healed through a lot of the themes of abandonment and mental illness that and trauma that had framed my writing. um but I just wanted to I wanted to find joy in the process of writing, in the community of writing. And so this our conversation, these conversations are a way for me to kind of um find some joy in the writing process.
Yeah.
Do you want to read my piece?
Yes. When I read your piece, I really felt it in the depths of the pain, and I remember for me when you talked about you cut yourself open to bleed for you. I remembered something in my life that was very significant, where I
Mm,
cut myself not to commit suicide, but I cut myself to bleed because I couldn't talk about my parents' death.
mm,
And so and I had to work a lot, of hours, and I wasn't seeing my money.
mm,
So that resonated with me really. And also when the white dress swirling, I have done videos where I do meditation dance, and it's neat because I thought about that in the breeze, and that's me. I'll be outside, barefoot and have something cute on, you know what I mean, just swirling like it. But it also kind of signified to me an angel, in
mm,
disguise, somebody who you're longing for, and something that just seemed to be desolate,
mm,
a place where you would walk over dead man's bones type
mm,
of town. It was just like it was just a metaphorically for me like that, and then I thought to myself, wow, that's even in a connection with me to how we deal with life. And are people that are good in our life, are they a mirage, or they are my oasis, so I took it like that, and it was just very powerful because when she treated your wounds by tearing off a piece of her dress, and to me the dress was swirling, so it was just beautiful, even if it was simplistic, it was just
mhm,
beautiful. And so for her to be able to do that for you while you were dying of thirst, while you were on your last leg, and you just couldn't do anymore, and you got deep, when you were trying to cut the pain from out of your body, you just wanted to let it bleed out, and so for her to be able to do that, and she made sure that she took care of you, that you
Mm,
were going to be okay, and you felt it without even have to putting it on paper.
mm,
But you felt that quench, you felt that water, you got, what you needed from that thirst, the thirst of love, the thirst of you will always be there when I need you.
mm.
And so, and I liked it because it was funny with whiskey and sass on your. So I was like, okay, she was not somebody that was all stiff and all that, but it just was like a real, but like again, that angel that was sent to you, um, and a piece of her was floating inside you as you drove away. It
Yeah,
was just like you were able to get up and go.
I
And
think
she just
that
went ahead and went back into where she wanted, where she came from, and everything was beautiful. That's what I took from it.
I think the link in those in our pieces are there, right? Like I feel like in some ways uh this character who is a this person um is kind of a recurring character. I wrote that piece while I was driving across the country,
Oh
and
wow!
um and I I had received a vision that I was going to meet this incredible person, um, and I needed to drive across the country to find that person. And
Wow!
I now know that the person that I needed to find was me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was someone else, and I um so much so that every time I met someone new, I was like, "Oh my god, is this person? Oh my god, is this like
Yeah.
it was a little bit in retrospect a little bit ridiculous, probably, but also super important. Um, and I think that she represents you in your piece, the star and your aunt, right? That are giving you those moments of hope,
Yes.
uh, and relief, as you say, the last line, the second to the last line, I think, of your poem, that we even people of faith need a little sign from the divine that we're still on track, right? That's why
Yeah.
we see angel numbers, and we look for ways that God will tell us that that we're good, and that we're on the journey. And so um sometimes it's a woman on the side of the road, and sometimes it's a star in the sky that
Yes.
feels like it was just that it was put there for me or for you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um I think that is an important part of the process of faith, and I think it's an important part of the process of writing, right? Is finding ways to seek the thing, or to find comfort along the journey towards the thing that we are truly seeking.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you 100%. I couldn't have said it any better. It's a wonderful thing to know the signs, and for me, it's about just tapping in to the deepest levels and also the joyful levels, because you want to be able to bring people joy and comfort and hope, at the same time being able to share. So our pieces were, and it's always something or someone, and we don't know who it's going to be or what it's going to be like, but we know when we get it, it's worth it. It's
Yeah.
worth going through the journey of the healing process, because just like if we get a wound, depending on how deep it is, it's going to take longer to heal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be patient with ourselves and give ourselves grace
Mm-hmm.
as we're
Yeah.
going through a situation. And it may not be always right and or good, and nobody gets an A in everything.
Right. For sure.
Sometimes you have to fail in order to rise up. And anybody who has made it to the top, like you said, whether it's writers or chefs and things like that, different people who rised up in whatever their gift was, can say, yeah, you know what, I failed, I bombed, you know what I mean, like I got a daggone zero for that. Like
Right.
not even,
Right.
but it built us up to understand that, okay, even if we were embarrassed or ashamed, guilty, or feeling those kinds of things, that we have to push through, and there's tools to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to solve everything with violence. We don't have to go to those places. However, we're battle ready
Mm.
for whatever
Mm.
comes our way.
Mm. Yeah.
So we always stay armored up, and keep it
Yeah.
going. So yeah, I want people to hold on to those words that we just said, because you said it all.
Yeah. How do you last thing I want to talk to you before I let you go about is finding community. You seem to be just really active in spaces, and it has writing always been, have you always sought community in your writing? Is that a part of what just how you see writing, or how did you come to think about um, you know the communal nature of writing in that way?
Well, I think that the best way I can answer that is through the years, I have been more and more uh, doing more and more sharing of my work, because again, a lot of the stuff that I'm bringing out is over 20, 30 years old.
Mm.
Some of them, we ain't gonna tell my age, so I'm just gonna stop right there. But okay, but so there's things that, once I became active in autism, I was doing flyers and at that time and newsletters, putting out information all over Baltimore, and going to Annapolis and putting in hands of lawmakers and everything else of what was going on around me. So I've used also my voice.
Mm.
So I never really remembered or recited any of my words that I wrote. I have over 300 poems. I got short stories and I got 2 books. And I can't remember any of my poetry, and I never could because I was a writer.
Mm.
Being able to speak was another thing that I was able to be good at. So I
Mm.
combined the two and learned how to do that in daily life, and then let my words that I've already said go ahead and translate them back on a paper, and the way that I was feeling and all of that, um, and through all the pain, that was going on, the particular pain. Writing was something, like I said, that I always was able to do, and I was able to talk about it. And I just started combining the two of doing spoken word, uh, because these spaces now that I'm in, it's great because people knew me before we had the internet. And again, dag, I'm telling on myself, but you know what? It's cool, because I'm grateful to see, this day.
Mm.
So it's
That's enough.
wonderful because I'm really more delving into the speaking about it, and it feels good, and I hope other people will go ahead and do the same, do some spoken word.
I mean, this it's this is new for me, that's for sure. And because, as I said earlier, it was a solitary practice, and uh but I think that um there's also something that I know that every time I read a piece, digitally or in person, um there is a little bit of I'm getting brownie points, right? I know that there is a part of my journey that is intended to be this public thing, like, like that's part of the reason why I'm here, is to do this thing, and be more public and more intentional, because and we need everyone to do that if you feel called, because there's someone on the other side of listening to whatever it is you're saying, that needs that food that you're delivering, that needs that nourishment, that needs that encouragement, that needs that support, or like whatever it is, that we need the community more than ever, so that especially in those dark places, so that we can help drag people um to the other side of healing, and so that they can
Yeah,
see a light on the other side, pulling them, that star pulling them and telling them that it's okay to be brave and vulnerable, and all of that. So where can people find your writing? Do you have a website? Is there, like, what's, just how can people find you?
well, they can definitely find me. My first book of poetry was Light, and it's dedicated to my daughter Beauty with autism, and my mom Grace, who died of cancer. So I came up with Beauty's Grace Group, where we give out information. Um, and so that book is found, Beauty's Grace Group Book of Poetry is on Amazon.
Hmm.
And my spoken word album is on Spotify, YouTube, all of that under Kristie Farley.
Okay.
So people can find me that way. And basically, all my handles um, with Instagram, it's f.Kristie. And that's within threads. And I'm basically working more within there. So that way they could just go ahead and find me. And then Facebook is the same thing, Kristie
Yeah.
Farley. So I kept it pretty simple all the way across the board. Those that can see the Kristie Boss Up Blue Mamba Farley, I have two YouTube pages that I got to interconnect and I haven't gotten to yet. So if they want to
Hmm.
check out some of the things I talk about with my work and all of that, and also the Assembly of Excellence podcast, they have a poetry night every Friday. And so that people can go ahead and look at the Assembly of Excellence podcast on YouTube and see the
Cool.
lives that we've done. So I thank you so much for this. It was a great experience, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Oh my goodness, God bless.
God bless. And yeah, keep writing.
Yes. Talk to you
Cheers.
soon.